Here goes a really short video about marriage. Just did one a minute ago, but I wanted to do with my brother Ayub. Ayub is a convert. You converted like maybe 2 years ago?
You could say that. Yeah.
Okay, so you got a sort of Western and Muslim kind of experience on relationships, and I want to show
No
you.
experience. I don't have any experience with relationships in my jahiliyyah, you could say, before Islam. No.
Yeah.
But in terms of
Kind of awareness.
what I've observed, awareness, yes.
And being part of that culture, like your family is not Western. I mean, they are Western, you imagine, so maybe you can appreciate it a little bit. Anyway, let's see how quickly we can do this. Just knock out some ideas, okay? So, I want to talk about marriage, and the kind of question I want to ask is, should you be trying to find or be the right person? Because I think they're two different attitudes. Okay, so people in the West have a very romantic idea of relationships and marriage, right?
Yes.
And they think if you can find the right person, the life will be perfect, it will just work out. And so here's a verse of the Holy Quran that I want to talk about very quickly. And as to those who disbelieve, and this disbelieve in the word from Arabic is somebody who hides from the light of God, the guidance of God, right? Okay, their deeds are like a mirage in the desert. The thirsty one thinks it to be water until he comes to it and he finds it to be nothing, and he finds Allah near him, that is God. Allah is just an ancient name for God. Even Christians or Jesus used to use that. Okay, and he fully pays him account. In short, when you hide from the guidance of God, nothing can quench your thirst, nothing can make you happy except for God. And so everything you do, never mind marriage or anything else, all your deeds are like you're chasing something and you're never going to be happy. Okay, and so, in short, even looking for a person becomes like a materialistic pursuit, like trying to buy an iPhone. Okay, because when you get an iPhone, however lovely that iPhone is, the next version is going to come out next year, and you're going to discard that version you've got for another thing, and that's what you find with people at the moment. Let's just center a little bit. Okay, yeah, let's center ourselves there. So, any thoughts about that? Like, people are treating each other like objects and discarding each other like objects when you're not centered around God.
Yeah, I agree. I think the verse that you bring up, well, I'm not. Well, it's one that I've heard. I don't think, because I'm not familiar, with the tafsir, and I'm not going to try and, make up my own interpretation or anything at all, like that. But I think I understand the sort of what you're coming to, and I think I agree. I think that without God, or without that relationship with the creator of the universe, people will always struggle to find happiness. And I think that everyone, we can't deny everyone is in search of happiness in some form or other. So whether that is through, people will think that they'll be happy through acquiring a lot of wealth, or perhaps finding a woman, or whatever it is, or becoming successful in some area, whatever it is, acquiring a lot of Instagram followers, something like this. Everyone is in search of happiness, but I believe everyone is looking in all the wrong places. Okay, and I know even very, very rich, successful people with all kinds of beautiful house, beautiful partner, a nice car, and a lot of money, and nice clothes, etc., etc. These people will still find that there is something just missing inside. There is some kind of hole there, and they don't know. I personally, from my personal experience, before I embraced Islam, let's say, I was actually at a very low point in my life. For the first time, I had experienced depression, and it was very low, kind of really low moment for me. Nothing made me happy. I was very hollow and empty, and I think the number one thing at that time was, why am I feeling like this? I was really scratching my head. I had all these different thoughts, all these different theories as to what could be causing this. Is it maybe my diet? Is it perhaps, I don't know, whatever, I had all these different ideas, and I think I never fully, I never like realized what it was, but with time, I gradually healed, and I eventually my heart opened up to Islam, and Allah chose to guide me to Islam, and I think with Islam it was possible, and I honestly haven't, wallahi, I did not realize this until a couple days ago, earlier this week, and I realized for the first time that Islam was actually possibly the biggest thing that really actually helped to heal me and to feel better and to feel happy again. And now I'm like, now I'm good, now I'm kind of back to normal, you could say, just about.
So there's a test, isn't it?
We're all
There's
tested.
no, what I mean by a test to see that it is God that we need, and Islam just gives you that connection, that
Yeah.
honest connection with the real God.
Like no other religion.
Yeah, and it says hearts can find comfort in the remembrance of God. So there's a test you can apply that we don't realize that the reason why we're depressed is because we're missing God. We don't realize, and even psychologists know this. Those psychologists, we're not told about these things. That there's a guy called Viktor Frankl, who's one of the most famous psychologists, and he said God is the super meaning, and you need meaning in your life, and you don't have meaning without that. So there are lots of things that. So what I mean to say when we're getting back to marriage,
Yes.
is that although marriage is good, but if you come with the wrong starting point, you never feel fulfilled, because the right starting point should be somebody who should make you a better person. The wrong starting point is and if it's a good person, you have to look for good people. But the wrong starting point is what people do on Tinder at the moment. They spend 1 second looking at the person's face and deciding, is that person good looking enough for me to marry? Is that somebody so I can show off to my friends and say, look at this amazing person, he's 6 foot whatever, and all this kind of stuff. All these materialistic outer experience, So it's the wrong attitude, and you get the wrong results. Yeah, so this is me trying to do it really quickly.
I think that's why you mentioned you mentioned Tinder. I would mention Muzz. Muzz, there's no room for Muzz. Don't go on Muzz, because it's the same thing as Tinder. And I believe in finding the right person in the right way. And it's the same sort of thing like you mentioned. I mean, it's the most superficial thing. You see the photo of the person, and you're supposed to make a judgment based on that on the kind of face value appearance.
Yeah.
And you swipe left or right. There's no room for that at all. Don't even bother. I wouldn't bother.
Very interesting. I like that input, because I never tried that. So my own marriage was organised through the Muslim community, through people who knew each of the families, and we looked at compatibility. So some people are very there's all sorts of Muslims, and there's some people who are kind of more spiritual or less spiritual, and you don't want somebody who's too spiritual for your own personality, because there will be too much of a clash, because you might be attached to being a Muslim, but I still want a fancy car, right? And so you need somebody who, you need to know each of the families. And so I've done a video on arranged marriages. I say arranged marriage or assisted marriages, because arranged marriages sounds like forced marriages, and in the West there's a lot of propaganda against it, even though that's the solution, I would say.
Forced marriages.
No, sorry, I'm glad you said that, just to clarify. No, forced marriage is a bad thing, but assisted marriages, where the community gets together and gets to know you really well, and gets to know all the potential partners, and then you go through all these you meet different people, and you say, are we the right people, have a discussion, and then, marry them or not. So it's like a whatever, yeah. So it's like a dating, but in real life sort of thing, based on the community. Anyway, so I'm going to knock off 2 points really quickly. Like attracts like. Okay, so I don't believe in finding the right person necessarily, because marriage is a long journey, and just getting married is the beginning. It's not the end. Okay, it's being the right person that matters. Okay, so like attracts like is the halfway point. It's like, if you want to find the right person, you've got to be the right person. What I mean by that is, liars attract liars, truthful people attract truthful people. Okay, and there's a verse of the Holy Quran that says, good men are for good women. But that's not the whole verse, it's a part of the verse, right? Okay, and I'll give references in the bottom of the video, right? So, and I don't want you to just believe that. There's a lot of logic to do with that. right? Like, say you're interested in football and I'm interested in football, we'll connect over football. If you are interested in spirituality and I hate spirituality, we're not going to be interested in each other, right? And so being good is essential for a good marriage, because selfish people are misery to live with. Kindness and goodness and all these kind of things, that's what makes marriage last. But these are things that are not promoted or put first in a Western society, which makes it completely unsurprising that marriages are breaking down so much, because people are just looking at the superficial, on the top kind of stuff, right? Anyway, and yeah, so, and the last point I want to kind of make, I'm kind of skipping a lot of the points I made in an earlier video, but growing in love is the important thing. Okay, so if you're a nice person, people, just like, even if forget marriage, like when we first talked, we didn't really know each other, we didn't really kind of appreciate each other so much, but over time we've kind of liked each other's personality and we got closer, right? It's the same with anybody. If you're in a marriage, if you're a kind person and your wife or husband's a kind person, you'll get closer and you'll fall in love or grow in love, because that's how it should be, right? And so in Islam, there's an interesting saying from Prophet Muhammad. It says, whoever God provides with a righteous wife, God has assisted in him in half of his religion, his faith. Let him fear God regarding the second half. Let me kind of focus on one part. Basically, marriage is half of faith. But why? And why is that important to what I'm just saying here? The reason why people find marriage difficult is because they don't realize the work it takes, which is half of the teachings of Islam, which is a whole bunch of rules. You need to practice half of them to survive marriage. But also, when you do that, you benefit so much from it. Like, if you're a kind person, you learn to be a better human being. If you're a generous person, if you put other people before yourself, you benefit. So, and then you start liking that person more. Any thoughts?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you know, there won't necessarily be all that much love, right? Right from the start, isn't it? But the more you spend time with the other person, that will grow with time, always. But it's, you know, that's the way it works. It won't be right from the start, isn't it? And, you know, that compatibility, and, you know, when you've got something in common, and perhaps, and I think you mentioned in terms of the religion, the two people, they have to be kind of fairly on the same level in terms of their practice. You know, otherwise it won't really work, isn't it? I mean, you know, and that's part of compatibility, and you need to you know, learn from each other, and, you know, have that kind of, you know.
And I think I'm trying to be as helpful as possible to a largely Western audience, and for them, they would find it a bit weird, and tell me what you think, that they want it to be all sparks flying and exciting right from the beginning, and they might find it a bit weird to have this idea of you're not madly in love in the beginning,
Yeah.
right? And I think all women are beautiful in their different ways. I think we've kind of been too superficial or too many high expectations of this person should be a 10 or a 5 and all these kind of stupid numbers system, right? Have you ever heard people labeling people like that, right? Okay. So you can love most women, first of all. And then the second point is, the idea of love is so wrong that it's on the surface rather than the inside. And real love is kindness. And it should develop. And that's the kind of thing that makes you... And if you have I don't know. I mean, I do know, but I'm trying to make it short. Like, I think when you have a focus on... Not just when you get married, the point of marriage is not just yourself, but to begin a family and then why a family? Because that's the beginning of a. So there's a person who's the middle. Then there's when you get into a marriage, there's kind of a wider circle, and then you make a family, and then you make a community. Do you know what I mean? But if you don't have the beginning, you can't have the rest. Okay.
You have to start with yourself, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. So there's a greater purpose to marriage, and if you have that greater purpose, then you will grow in love, and you'll have a reason to stick together and become a better person. And I'm kind of digressing on a couple of topics.
Back to God, doesn't it? It all comes back to God, really.
Yeah, and so just to summarize on your last point, which is if you have a focus on God, and God is the reason why you're doing it, everything, you become stronger in all different directions, and things work out better. But anyway,
it will fall into place if you're, if the foundation for it is Islam, really, and worshipping or serving Allah, which is as Allah in the Quran tells us, our actual purpose in life is to worship Allah, and so that should really be the foundation for everything in our lives, and marriage as well, because marriage is a big part of a person's life, So if anything, that's the foundation of a community, is marriages. You need to have successful marriages, successful families, successful community, and that's the way it follows, really, I think. Yeah.
Brilliant, and that kind of ties back right from the beginning. I said, so if you disbelieve in God, and I think you have to actively disbelieve to ignore the reality of God, right? Then all your deeds kind of become meaningless, and you're never satisfied. But if you have this attitude, a Muslim attitude, which has the most successful marriage in general, most children, all that kind of stuff, then your attitude starts from a different place. It's not all about you and serving yourself. It's about a bigger cause, and so things last longer when you have better intentions.
So one very important thing as well, I think people overlook, and I think that probably stems from that selfish attitude that people might have going into a relationship, is that actually you have love, and then you also have your mercy. So if you don't have love, you may not necessarily have love for the other person right from the beginning, but you're supposed to have mercy, because in our religion we understand that, essentially, I think in a marriage, you're sort of, in a way, you have to, there's like rights, and you fulfill the other person's rights, and you yourself have rights, and the other person fulfills. So in a way, you're meant to serve each other. It's not about me. So essentially, you have to have mercy for the other person, and sometimes you might come to a point where maybe your love has fizzled out for the other person. That's when the mercy has to kick in as well, because it's not just about love. Love is, how would you even define love?
Well, people are mixed up.
Kindness, you say it's kindness, so I suppose that's sort of mercy as well. So maybe it's that people have the wrong idea of what love actually is itself, But
I don't deny there should be a sexual love with your partner, and I did talk about it in the earlier video. But I was saying short that all women. The short version is all women are beautiful. And you can have that sexual relationship with a woman, most women, right? Well, let's say all in short, right? But when you look at pornography and other women, and you can confuse yourself. That's the big problem that most people are suffering from. I would say.
Why is that?
Okay, so what pornography does, it creates an illusion of a person that doesn't exist. Okay, what I mean by that, so let's say when a typical person looks at pornography, they don't just look at one video, they look at 100 videos, and what they do is they say, I like the person's hair in that one, I like the person's backside in that one, and whatever, and you create a person that doesn't exist in your mind, and you compare it to your wife, right? And your wife can never compare to a non-existent actor as well, and they're all acting, by the way, as well, right? If you study pornography and what's happening, it's all acting. Okay, these people don't hide it; they'll tell you, right? Well, they won't tell you in the video, but they'll if you ask people. There's lots of interviews of people who do this kind of stuff, and they will tell you they're very depressed and all this kind of stuff, right? So, and it's all acting. So the point is, you're making your life a misery and making it impossible to like your potential life partner who wants to be kind to you and care for you, hopefully, when you're looking at everybody else. That's the kind of thing.
Yeah, this is very important for people to understand, I reckon, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Jazakallah for that.